Secretary Asis, Prosecutor General Claro Arellano, Counsel Ricardo Paras, Assistant Solgen Carl Miranda. I believe that your Solgen is indisposed. Director Virgilio Mendez, Director Ricardo Reiner Cruz, and newly appointed, no, just a few months, Attorney Robert Leiretana, and Counsel Raul Creencia, Chair Richard Amurao of the APCGG. Oh, newly appointed also because of Andy moving to Comelec. Admin Manuel Co of the PPA, and Auditor of the DOJ, Ares. Yes. Any more? The others. And we thank the Senate President, former Justice Secretary. That means you'll have more questions coming from the former Secretary. We will. Well, one of my favorite agencies is a DOJ and its attached agencies. We've been handling you for 3 years. The usual format is we will just listen to your presentation, and we will pose questions, if any. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to the Honorable Senate President. And for starters, I wish to thank, on behalf of the DOJ family, the Honorable Chair, Senator Loren Legarda, for championing quite passionately the budget of the DOJ family. So this is our presentation. I'll skip the first 3 slides. These are just really the mandate of the DOJ. So let's start with the page 4. Who's page 4.
Attorney Presida Acosta is also present of the PAO. Yes. I've recognized everybody already.
Again, good afternoon. I am pleased to present to the Honorable Committee the proposed budget of the Department, including constituent and attached agencies for the fiscal year 2016. The Department's services are in 3 clusters: law enforcement, corrections, and legal services. Through these, we work towards the outcome of effective, efficient, and accessible justice system. And under the Philippine Development Plan, we contribute to the sector outcome or goal of a strengthened rule of law, which is essential for achieving good governance and stable national security environment in the country. These outcomes are aligned to the President's social contract with the Filipino people through its 3 key result areas: 1, just and lasting peace and the rule of law; 2, transparent, accountable, and participatory governance; and 3, rapid, inclusive, and sustained economic growth. And in line with the President's social contract and Philippine Development Plan, we have achieved performance improvements in our major programs. As shown in the slide, the disposition rate, or percentage of cases resolved progressively, improved from 74.6% in 2010 to 80.3% in 2014. This is in spite of the more than 20% increase in investigation caseload of our prosecutors nationwide. However, while figures indicate improvement in terms of efficiency, we aim to further improve by reducing backlogs and increasing prosecution success. With higher appropriations provided by Congress and proactive approach instituted by the Department, coverage of the Witness Protection Program increased by 20%, from 465 witnesses in 2010 to 570 in 2014. Conviction rate for cases with WPP-covered witnesses was at 90% in 2014, which is about 14% higher than the 78.9% in 2010. For anti-trafficking in persons enforcement through the Interagency Council Against Trafficking, or the IACAT, as shown in the graph, the number of convictions secured and the number of persons convicted annually progressively increased from 2010 to 2014. In 2014, IACAT was able to secure 57 trafficking case convictions, which is twice as much as the 27 convictions acquired in 2013. Cumulatively, as of September of this year, there were 207 convictions secured in 207 cases since the enactment of RA 9208 as amended. With our intensified efforts, the Philippines has maintained its Tier 2 status in the U.S. Global Trafficking in Persons Report for the 5th straight year. The Tier 2 status officially recognizes a country's major efforts to adhere to the benchmarks prescribed by the U.S. State Department in meeting the minimum standards. We have laid out 4 key strategies in our DOJ development plan, namely good governance in the system, enhancing the detection and investigation of crimes or offenses, and prosecution and rehabilitation of offenders, ensuring adequate, accessible, fair, stable, and predictable legal framework and services, and strengthening special protection measures for priority cases and specialized concerns such as juvenile justice, land rights, cybercrime, and competition or anti-monopoly enforcement. The department's major final outputs or major services rendered to the public and the government are shown in the slide, grouped according to our functional clusters. The DOJ proper has 3 MFOs, namely law enforcement, corrections, and legal services. Our law enforcement agencies consist of NBI Investigation Services, NBI Border Control and Management Services, and our corrections agencies referred to Bucor Rehabilitation and Custodial Services, and PPA Investigation, Supervision, and Rehabilitation Services for the probation and parole system. Our legal services agencies are the free legal services to indigent clients and other qualified persons by the PAO, legal services for national government agencies by the OSG, legal services for government corporations by the OGCC, land registration services by the LRA, and recovery and administration services for ill-gotten wealth by the PCGG. Let's go to the budget summary. The total 2016 program budget of the DOJ, including its constituent and attached agencies, amount to 12.8 billion pesos. This is a mere 0.43% or less than half of 1% of the total 3.002 trillion national budget for 2016. For fiscal year 2016, we submitted to the DBM a department-wide budget proposal of 25.5 billion. The total budget recommended in the 2016 NEP is 12.8 billion, which is 12.7% higher than the 11.3 billion in the 2015 GAA. Now, this slide now shows our 2016 agency budgets by expense classification in million pesos. Details on these figures will be shown later. On the overall, about 68% is for personal services, including salaries and other compensation of employees. Only 28% is provided for MOOE. For capital outlays, a minimal share of 4% is provided, covering select agencies of the department. With the permission of the honorable members of the committee, please allow me to present the DOJ OSEC budget in the next several slides. For DOJ OSEC, our 2016 allocation amounts to 4.56 billion, which is 26% higher than the 3.63 billion budget in 2015. Our operations budget constitutes 73% of the total DOJ OSEC budget. About 76% of the DOJ OSEC budget allocation for 2016 is for personal services, 20% for MOOE, and only 44% for capital outlays. Our operations budget covers the 3 major final outputs, or MFOs, of the DOJ OSEC, namely law enforcement, corrections, and legal services. For our law enforcement MFO budget, The prosecution services budget for the NPS increased by 6%. WPP increased by 24%. IACAT increased by 1%. And other component programs and activities increased by 5%. On the overall, our 2016 law enforcement budget will be 7% higher than our 2015 appropriations. Our law enforcement performance indicators focus on investigation and prosecution, considering that the bulk of the budget is for the NPS. The performance indicators relate to the number of criminal complaints resolved, successful prosecutions, and backlog reduction. The indicated targets are based on the recommended 2016 budget levels with nominal increases relative to actual expenditures and performance in 2014. Now this slide, the current slide shows our other law enforcement programs and activities, and these are the Committee for the Special Protection of Children, as mandated by EO number 53, series of 2011, to ensure that the Filipino children are provided legal protection within a child-sensitive justice system. Next is the Office for Competition, created by Executive Order number 45, series of 2011, with the designation of the DOJ as competition authority to strengthen the government's legal framework and enforcement against monopolies and cartels. And the Cybercrime Prevention Act, RA 10175, mandates the creation of an Office of Cybercrime in the DOJ. For our correction services, the Board of Pardons and Parole grants parole to qualified offenders and recommends pardon or executive clemency, while the Victims' Compensation Program through the Board of Claims provides monetary compensation for victims of violent crimes and unjust imprisonment. The 2016 recommended budget is about 2% higher than the 2015 appropriations. In terms of performance, the indicators focus on pardons and parole services as among the core functions of the department proper. On legal services, the DOJ legal staff renders various legal services in relation to the function of the Justice Secretary as Attorney General, including legal opinions, resolution of citizenship cases, grant of special non-immigrant visas, legislative position papers, and legal studies. Its 2016 budget will increase by 4%. The Office for the Alternative Dispute Resolution is mandated by RA 9285 to promote, develop, and expand the use of alternative dispute resolution mechanisms in the private and public sectors. Its budget will significantly increase by 30%. DOJ lawyers also participate in the negotiation of economic agreements within the country and abroad, and its implementation to ensure consistency with our legal interests and framework. The budget for this will be the same as the 2015 appropriations based on estimated actual requirements. Locally funded projects. For 2016, there will be a total of 5 locally funded projects, namely 1, Proposed Justice Center, which will house the DOJ Central Office and law enforcement agencies such as the BI and NBI in a new location and facility with $50 million for the architectural and engineering design. 2, the public-private partnership project for the transfer of the New Bilibid Prison and also of CIW, Correctional Institution for Women, to Fort Magsaysay, General Tino Nueva Ecija, with 200 proposed budget, $200 million for construction, consultancy services. 3, ongoing National Justice Information System project, or NGS project, with $70 million. This is a medium-term ICT harmonization initiative project. 4, implementation of Administrative Order number 35, series of 2012, creating the Interagency Committee on Extralegal Killings and Forced Disappearances, Torture, and other grave violations of right to life, liberty, and security of persons, with $33 million. And 5, continuing capacity building of our lawyers for participation in government trade and investment negotiations with $4 million.
Madam Chair, just before you leave that,
Yes, Your Honor.
with your permission, what is the transfer to the new Bilibid prison of 200 million? I thought that you're having a PPP project for this. What is this 200 million for?
This is for the consultancy services, Your Honor. So this is not,
A consultancy service? 200 million for a consultant?
can we have,
What is this? Because from what I recall is that there is and that you just mentioned, there is a proposed regional prison facility through a PPP to be built in Fort Magsaysay. So what is this 200 billion for?
yes, Your Honor, you're correct. It is, the project is actually through PPP and
That's correct,
specifically
yes.
the build, transfer,
Yes.
maintain. But there is an independent consultant will be engaged and procured under RA 9184. And the fees of the independent consultant will be equally shared between DOJ and the project proponent. That is what was submitted to us by the PPP Center.
The
But
Secretary mentions that it is provided by law, that a consultant is required by both the private sector and the DOJ.
The CSC,
Sir,
or Chief State Counsel,
yes,
Coraz
sir.
will answer.
Sir, I just took over as chairman, Vice Yusek Salazar. Now, it is the PPP which recommended that there be a consultant. The consultant, first of all, will review the minimum standards of the project because it is the bidders will submit their own concept of in accordance with the standards,
Right.
and then the consultant will also help in the evaluation. Now, this is a 20-year project, so even the monitoring of how to comply with the obligations over the span of 20 years will have to be involved an independent
So the
consultant.
contractor's fee is for 20 years?
The partnership of the winning proponent, 20 years.
I cannot understand this. Anyway, can you think out of a better answer and we'll go back to this? We allow first. Yeah.
Just to proceed, you're saying that the 200 million goes to a consultant. Can you name, is it a consultancy firm? Is it a consultant, a person, or is it a group of persons? And is it to oversee the PPP project of the transfer to Fort Magsaysay, which you claim is a 20-year project, meaning the consultant who will be paid 200 million will be spread throughout 20 years, and the construction of the Bilibid prison is a 20-year period? Can we
How was 200 million arrived at?
Yes.
We still don't have the specifics of this, but then it was presented to us during our meeting about 2 days ago, and we will have to.
It was present. Who presented the
It
200
is
million?
the PPP Center.
They said 200 million is needed, or they said a consultant is needed?
A consultant was needed.
So where did the 200 million figure
From them also,
come from?
sir.
We'll look.
Huh?
Sir, I'll look into the.
Perhaps, Mr. President, what they could do is submit the PPP Center justification of the 200 million consultancy.
Did not propose the 200 million. They only proposed a consultant.
But whoever in the DOJ attended the PPP meeting, there must have been a transcript of the discussion why 200. First, the justification of a need for a consultant. I'm not too familiar with other agencies who do PPPs. If a consultant from that agency and a budgetary provision for a consultant to oversee the construction is actually, in fact, I will look at all PPPs. That's good. So we will look at all PPPs, and if that agency conducting the PPPs actually have a provision for consultancy, and who dictates the amount for consultancy? Is it the PPP, private sector, or the center, or the agency? I'm glad that you raised this. And second, perhaps, could you kindly tell us who came up with the 200 figure? The Senate President is correct. There must be a basis. Napakalaking sweldo naman ng engineer or architectong yan if it's just for 1 year. However, if it's spread for 20 years, so let's not allocate 200 million for 20 years because that would be the prerogative of the future Congresses, hindi ba? So if a consultant is needed, and I agree with you, perhaps yes, a consultant is needed because lawyers cannot oversee architecture and engineering, etc. However, maybe not 200. So we're talking about the 2016 budget, and you should downscale it into the budget needed for the consultant for that year. Unless, perhaps, you could justify the need for 200 million for a consultant. Secretary De Lima.
Yes, Your Honor, I was just informed by the Secretariat that even the amount is actually comes also from the PPP Center. And it seems that it's a mere estimate based on the total project cost, estimated a total project cost, which is 52 billion. And that is something that, because the independent consultant is to be hired and is to be, still to be bidded out based on the law. But as to the estimate, we understand the concern. We need to look into the reasonableness of that estimate.
Perhaps the DBM staff present here today can actually tell us, as you mentioned, this is provided for by the law. Is that accurate? Could we check in the PPP law or the BOT law? Is it that requires the agencies to provide consultancy from public funds, from GAA? So, second, how do you compute the consultancy fees? 52 billion, so 200 million is how many percent? Is it required? Also, could we request you to submit the PPP recommendation? So you're saying it's not a DOJ amount and not a DOJ request, but the PPP that said that. Could you kindly put that in writing for the PPP Center? But could we hear from the DBM? Are you, only if she's familiar with this, and is it standard that every government agency has a provision for consultancy for PPP projects? And I'm just wondering if it's spread over 20 years for such a big project, is it 200 every year? That's a bit too much. If it's 200 spread over 20 years, then we should not put the whole 200.
I don't think, Your
Yes.
Honor, it's for 20 years. It's probably for 3 years. Because
I heard
3
it's
years
a
is the construction period.
What was
Based
the
on the
20 years? What was the 20 years that Attorney
20
Paras
year
mentioned?
is the maintenance, because this is under the BTM scheme, build, transfer, and maintain. The private contractor will build or construct within 3 years, then will transfer after completion of
So it's 3
contract
years.
after 3 years, and for the remainder
to
17,
maintain
17
it,
years,
17 years.
to maintain it.
That's clarified.
So it's
yes.
BTM.
Thank you. Yes. State your name,
Yes,
lady from
good
DBM.
morning, ma'am. I'm Lulu Vispo, OIC Division Chief of Bureau D, Department of Budget and Management. We recommended 200 million on the consultancy based on the submission of the DOJ. They submitted to us that based on, actually, ma'am, ang independent consultant is, on the average, is equivalent to 1% of the civil works. Based on the PPP submitted to us, the civil works is around 30,721,275,000. So if you compute that in 1%, it is 307 million. So the recommendation is more lower than 1% civil works.
It's standard that every PPP has a consultant from the agency. That's required.
What we understand, ma'am, is the PP project submitted to us, and then based on their submission, they have this matrix showing IC consultant from other PPP projects, ma'am.
Maybe they're the owner's representative. In this particular case, the owner being DOJ, you have a owner's representative in the project, and that will be assumed by the consultant, since I assume none in the present staff of the DOJ would be competent to do that. That's the only explanation. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
We can.
Submit further explanation. May I continue, Your Honors? Saan na nga tayo? Hindi. Okay. Actually, Your Honors, we're done with the DOJ OSEC proposed budget. Now, for the attached agencies, if you will allow each of them to make a presentation, or because they also submitted their respective. Although we have it here, shall I continue?
Please proceed, yeah.
Your Honor. For our attached and constituent agencies, Your Honors, we start with the NBI. The 2016 allocation for our law enforcement agency, or an investigative arm, amounts to 1.16 billion, which is 5% higher than the 1.11 billion in 2015. The said amount includes funding for the following projects: upgrading and modernization of the NBI Cybercrime Division, ICT priority projects, and disaster victims identification program. For the said 2016 budget, NBI will be able to process 5.5 million applications for clearance, of which at least 96% will be processed within 10 minutes from receipt. NBI will also be able to act on and conduct investigation to at least 53,700 cases. For the Bureau of Immigration, the 2016 allocation amounts to 740 million, which is 4% higher than the 712 million in 2015. Given this budget, the BI estimates to process almost 30 million passenger entries and exits, 99.90% of which to be processed within 40 seconds upon primary inspection. The agency also estimates to process 730,000 immigration and registration documents. For the Bucor, the 2016 allocation amounts to 1.96 billion, which is 5% higher than the 1.87 billion in 2015. For the said budget, Bucor will manage the rehabilitation and custody of an estimated 43,484 inmates within 2016, of which, of which 32,271 inmates will undergo rehabilitation programs.
Madam Chair, with your permission, can we just go back to the Bureau of Immigration? Just
Yes,
one
Your
slide earlier. With your permission, Madam Chair. Now, with your permission, Madam Chair, on the BI, there is a pending issue, and this is the, let's face it, no? This is the issue on the additional benefits that the BI employees now enjoy, sourced from fees collected from the fast lane. Is that a correct premise?
Yes, Your Honor, the express lane.
The express lane. Presently, there is a fee collected through the use of the express lane. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And under the present the NEP, I understand it contains a special provision which says that there's a special provision which says that the express lane fees and charges are to be deposited with the National Treasury. Is that correct? Who is the immigration here?
Commissioner Fred Mison is
Yes.
around, Your Honor.
Yes, Commissioner Mison, this is a subject of a request from the BI to delete this particular provision.
Good afternoon, sir. Yes, you are correct, Your Honor.
All right. First, let me state on the record that I have no objection to your to this present to the grant of these benefits, because this is a benefit being enjoyed. What causes me worry is this. First, I ask you the question: are these fees collected public or private?
Based on the initial studies that we received, these are considered as private funds, Your Honor, considering that the money does not come from the National Treasury, but
No.
from
Oh.
but by virtue of a specific provision in our Immigration Act, Your Honor.
A specific provision in your Immigration Act which allows you to collect fees. Is that correct, Madam Secretary?
That is correct, Your Honor.
So, if the law allows you to collect a certain fee, isn't that a public fund? I cannot imagine that these are private funds. Now, if it is unavoidable that these are public funds, the next question is, who is authorized to disburse public funds? Congress. That's why we have this hearing today. Now, that is why there is basis for this special provision. But as I said, I have no objection to the grant of the benefit. But let us put it in proper order. In the various items in the budget, there is the so-called use of funds. Mayroon yan use of income. I'm sorry, use of income. The NBI before had that. I don't know if it's still there. But the LRA had that, but I don't know if it's still there. Various agencies in government are allowed use of income. This use of income is an authority, in effect, granted by Congress for the use of the specific income collected for a specific purpose. But it cannot be that you collect and then you disburse it among yourselves. That cannot be done. You disburse it because of the authority granted by Congress through a special provision which says use of income. My suggestion, therefore, is that instead of deleting this particular provision, which requires deposit with the National Treasury, you insert a provision, use of income. And therefore, you can use this now to continue with the benefits that you are receiving.
If I may, Your Honor.
Yes.
That is precisely what we are seeking in our pending bill in Congress, such that we will have a retention of income so that we can use to augment our
Well,
personnel.
it can be done through the budget. Hindi na kailangan ang special law. But we must have something, either by special law, which is what you're saying, or through the budget, which I am proposing, mas mabilis. Pag maghintay ka ng special law, baka hindi na, it may never come. So we retain the present provision, a deposit of express lane fees and charges collected to the National Treasury, and then insert use of income so that you can legitimize what you're doing.
Yes, Your Honor.
Oh, yes.
We thank the Honorable Senate President for clarifying the right mechanics and the right basis for that. And I agree with the proposal, Your Honor.
Sige. So that solves the problem.
It's going to be really very contentious about, you know, is it a public fund or a private fund? But it's also pretty clear to me, Your Honor, that it has to be public funds.
Thank you.
Ganon din. That's correct. The same effect.
By the way, Commissioner Mison, all those who go through the immigration would pay this fee. Those, you know, in other words, all the documents are processed through the express lane.
For those who are applying for any kind of visa status or transactions in our
Yeah, lahat naman
agency.
yan, ganun man ang trabaho niyo, di ba?
Yes, sir, but not those just passing through our immigration counters.
Sorry.
But not those passengers just passing through our immigration counters, Your Honor.
Oh,
So every time there is a document process,
Ay, wala naman talagang bayad yun. Pati kami, lahat, pagdaan mo doon sa immigration, magbabayad ka pa. Hindi naman siguro kasama yun. But all other documents goes through the express lane.
yes, Your Honor.
And everybody would pay.
Yes, Your Honor.
Magkano ba itong nakukolekta natin on an annual basis? How much are we collecting from the express lane? Commissioner Mison? How much do we collect out of this express lane?
Based on the figures that I have, Your Honor, it's about 1 billion per year, sir. Is it per year?
O-
Per year?
1 billion per year is according to my chairperson, 1.2 billion per year.
Maybe that's correct, Your Honor. I'm looking at 1 billion, Your Honor.
Oh, sige, that's petty cash. I mean, between 1 billion and 1.2 billion. All right, I hope that now you are convinced that by no language can we appropriate this by ourselves, 1 billion in public funds without authority from Congress. This is not small money. Pinag-aawayan dito, 200 billion. Pinapawisan ang sekretarya nyo sa kasasagot. 1 billion you just collect it and distribute it among yourselves. As I said, I have no objection to grant of additional benefit, but let us put it properly. Hindi naman po pwedeng, in fact, this is not subject to audit. Is that correct? Since these are private funds, that you assert these are private funds, hindi na audit ito?
The disbursement, Your Honor, we submit both to the Department of Justice and to the resident COA, Your Honor.
No. Is this being audited?
I would say yes, Your Honor.
All right. And on what basis is it being audited? If it is audited by COA, hindi naman pwede mag-audit ang COA sa private funds, hindi ba? The fact that it is audited by COA, these are public funds.
Correction, Your Honor. We only submit reports to both DOJ and COA, but they are not audited, Your Honor.
Just to clarify, Mr. President, per my records, the total collection is 1.2 billion pesos. And this is used, from my understanding, for the augmentation, salaries, and benefits of the Bureau of Immigration officers and staff. The total amount is 319 million a year. So if this 1.2 billion pesos collection is used to pay for the allowances of the Bureau of Immigration officers, then they will actually be receiving more than double of what has been appropriated for them under the GAA, assuming my figures are correct. If it's actually 1.2 billion a year, of what is deemed as private funds, and it's 319 million total salaries of Bureau of Immigration, meaning that is 7, 8, 900 million in additional salaries and benefits. Kindly enlighten me if my mathematics is correct.
Madam Chair, I do not have the exact number, but I can offer you percentages of the collection being collected and at the same time disbursed every month. So for example, if the total collection is, let's say, 100%, Your Honor, 15% of which we withhold as part of withholding taxes. 2% goes to the additional health insurance for all immigration officers and employees. 24% are actually paid to our contractual job orders and other confidential agents of the Bureau, and roughly 58%, Your Honor, are being paid to our regular immigration officers and employees as part of their overtime.
Not better to provide this in the General Appropriations Act so that these people also get benefits? Why should you get it from an express lane when you actually have been using these personnel, whether as consultant or staff? Provide the line item provision and we will approve it. If you need additional plantilla positions, propose it to DBM. If you need to increase the salaries and benefits and provide overtime, then provide it. Kaysa nanggagaling sa express lane, deemed as private funds, not subject to COA, and then dun, not subject to COA and Congress, tas dun pinaglalagay sa iba't ibang baybay. Let us not deprive them of the due benefits. Kung nag-overtime, bayaran ng overtime. Kung kailangan benepisyo, bayaran benepisyo. Kung kailangan ng consultants, bigyan ng consultants. Kung kailangan ng Intel fund, yes, I agree. Kung kailangan confidential funds. But getting it from an express lane and to be dividing it that way gives too much leeway for just possible over discretion and abuse, hindi ba?
I agree, Madam Chair. And again, in fairness to our fellow workers in government in the DBM, we've been asking and we've been getting additional plantilla positions almost every year, ma'am. Just like for this year, we received 200 additional immigration officer items. Last year, we also received 200 immigration officer items. We're in the middle, Your Honor, of rebuilding our workforce, increasing our personnel. But if I may, Your Honor, if we will compare our existing personnel strength with our partner in border control, which is the Bureau of Customs, the Bureau of Customs has more than 4,000 personnel in that agency, whereas in the Bureau we only have 2,000. At the same time, Your Honor, due to our antiquated immigration law, our salary grades have yet to be increased and adjusted. That's why if we compare, for instance, our lawyers in the Bureau of Immigration and compare it, let's say, with lawyers in the DOJ, in the PAO, in the OSG, our salary grades are much, much lower. Again, we are anticipating that if and when our pending bill in Congress is passed, this will be addressed. So we are in the middle of addressing this using all avenues. Again, if I may, we are also not in total objection of this special provision, but what we're saying, Madam Chair, is just not now, perhaps, because, again, we are still in the middle of rebuilding our organization, Your Honor.
How is that, Commissioner Bison? You're saying that don't place a special provision?
We were saying, Your Honor, that we are not totally against it, but at the same time, maybe not now, considering that we are in the process of increasing our workforce. If we compare our...
That has no relation. It's just to legitimize the use of the income. Just to legitimize it. We're not, we're not precisely taking it away. But if you continue with this, sometime you'll be questioned on this. We better provide the remedy, provide you with the cover. Otherwise, if you continue with this kind of a setup, there is always that danger that sometime in the future, somebody will go to answer for this. Ngayon pa lang, we're providing you with the correct legal basis for doing what you're doing. I cannot understand why you have to postpone it when we are here offering you a solution to protect you and your people. That's all that we're saying.
Yes, Your Honor, we differ.
Okay, sige.
And perhaps what you could submit to the committee would be the annual collection and the breakdown which you mentioned, because it's 1.8, I'm not sure if it's 1.2 or 1, let's say the collection for 2014 and the breakdown.
I think we will be able to submit that report, Your Honor, immediately after this
Good.
session.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
The special provision and with the submission of how the express lane funds are spent, we'll see what we can do to rationalize its utilization. Okay. Without depriving the deserving employees their benefits and overtime pay. Yes. Okay, please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're now at Bucor. For the Bucor, the 2016 allocation amounts to 1.96 billion, which is 5% higher than the 1.87 billion in 2015. For the said budget, Bucor will manage the rehabilitation and custody of an estimated 43,484 inmates within 2016, of which 32,271 inmates will undergo rehabilitation programs. Next, PPA. The 2016 allocation amounts to 628 million, which is about 22% higher than the 516 million in 2015. The said amount includes implementation of the single carpeta or inmate record system in the agency as part of the NG's project. With this 2016 budget, an estimated 25,122 parole and probation cases will be investigated, and 49,285 clients will be supervised by the probation and parole officers of the PPA nationwide for 2016. Likewise, an estimated 295,710 parolees and pardonees will be covered by the rehabilitation programs of the PPA. For the PAO, the 2016 allocation amounts to 1.99 billion, which is 6% higher than the 1.88 billion in 2015. Given the recommended budget, PAO will be able to provide various legal services in 797,350 civil, criminal, administrative, labor, and other cases. For the request for legal assistance, the PAO estimates to cover almost 5 million clients. For the OSG, the 2016 allocation amounts to 586 million, which is 11% higher than the 527 million in 2015. The OSG aims at least 90% of all cases acted upon in 2016 are within the period allowed by the rules or by the courts. For resolution of petitions for naturalization, the agency intends to resolve all by the end of the year. OGCC. The 2016 allocation amounts to 94 million, which is 9% higher than the 86 million in 2015. And given the said 2016 budget, the OGCC estimates to handle 4,700 cases. For the review of contracts and rendition of legal opinions for government corporations, the OGCC will ensure that 100% are rendered within the 28-day cycle. LRA. The 2016 allocation for LRA amounts to 947 million, which is 5% higher than the 902 million in 2015. The LRA will be able to provide land registration services of at least 686,000 for issuance of titles and about 3.45 million registration transactions, out of which 92% will be issued or annotated within 20 days after submission of complete documents. And lastly, for the PCGG, the 2016 allocation amounts to 101 million, which is 3% higher than the 98 million in 2015. The PCGG targets 309.86 million proceeds from administration of assets alone, excluding asset forfeitures from cases that may be decided by the courts in 2016. This ends, Your Honors, our presentation of the 2016 department-wide budgets. We are now ready to accommodate any other questions or clarifications. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to Secretary De Lima. With the permission of the Chair, may I raise some questions? All right. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First, let me commend the National Prosecution Service. Per the reports that are submitted to us, you have a disposition rate of about 80%. And notwithstanding the fact that there has been no increase in the manpower, and there has been an increase in the disposition. I mean, you have increased slightly, or in effect maintained a disposition rate of about 80%, notwithstanding the fact that your manpower remained constant, more or less. On the average per prosecutor, is it correct? Is my figure correct that each prosecutor will be handling about 219 cases on preliminary investigation per year? Is that correct, Prosecutor General Arellano?
Yes, Your Honor.
And as I said, you know, how many prosecutors do we have? How many are in the NPS, National Prosecution Service?
As of now, we have 1,788
1,788?
Prosecutors.
Okay.
And we have vacancies of 1,487.
What? You have vacancies of
487, Your Honor.
1,487? Is this correct?
Yes, yes, Your Honor.
That's you're just, in other words, out of about 3,000, almost out of 3,000 items.
Out of 3,275, we have vacancies of 1,487.
1,487, or let's say about, what, 45%?
Yes, sir.
And how many percent is that? Can somebody compute it? That's a little.
That's the latest.
That's a little
Yes.
awesome.
Yes. We have 758 pending with the Office of the President, Your Honor.
758.
758.
pending appointments.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
But since they have not yet been appointed, there is still 1,487 vacancies, or is that 1,487 plus 5,758?
No, that's already.
No, that's already included.
The 758 is part of the 1,487.
part of the
Yes, Your Honor.
yes, yes, Your Honor.
But
Part
just-
of the
Right.
1,487.
But right now, you have a vacancy 1,487 over 3275, 45% of the items in the National Prosecution Service would be unfilled.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, yes, Your Honor. But, Your Honor, we are now implementing 10071. That's why there's an increase in the number of vacancies.
I'm sorry.
We are now implementing the RA 10071, Your Honor,
What is that?
the National Prosecution Act of
So
2010.
what is the relevance of that to your vacancies of 45%? I mean, I'm looking at the figure. You're saying that there are a total of 3,275 items in the National Prosecution Service, out of which 1,487 are vacant. That's a 45% vacancy. Of course, you're saying that probably half of that vacancy are pending appointment, but until that they are appointed, you have a 45% vacancy.
Yes, Your Honor.
Isn't this alarming, Madam Secretary? Maybe before October 12, this should be filled up.
That's why, Your Honor, we transmitted the latest batches of nominees for the prosecutorial positions as passed upon and deliberated upon by the Selection and Promotion Board of the NPS. And in fact, the latest batches of nominees that we have forwarded to the Office of the President as of August 19 and also on August 25, a total of 559. And before that, there were other pending
So the
appointments.
total 751.
Yes, Your
58.
Honor. We continuously follow up with the Office of the President, Your Honor.
Well, all right. So, well, this is just a cause of concern. But notwithstanding that, you're saying that your disposition rate is 80%. But this also affects the trial in courts, because I assume a good number of this would be appearing in court. And if without a prosecutor, you cannot proceed with the criminal cases. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes, Your Honor.
No. Which brings me to the point of the aging of cases. What is there a reglement, during my time we have reglementary periods within which to resolve. Is that practice continued, Madam Secretary, Prosecutor General Arellano?
Yes, Your Honor. We have 60 days to resolve our cases.
60 days.
Yes, that's for cases for preliminary investigation.
Right, regardless of the nature of the offense.
Yes, Your Honor.
So you just have 60, your prosecutors have 60 days. And my report here indicates that about 55% of the cases are resolved beyond the reglementary period. Is this caused by the vacancies that you have? First, is this a correct figure, that
Yes.
55% are resolved beyond the reglementary period?
Yes, Your Honor. Partly it was caused by the lack of manpower, Your Honor.
And in fact, a good number are beyond 1 year. Out of that 55%, 31% is beyond 1 year.
Yes, Your Honor.
This is the difficulty with so many vacancies. The period within which to resolve these cases are lengthened. Now, the other thing is the disposition of the cases already pending in court. Of course, I realize that this is not fully within the control of the DOJ, of the National Prosecution Service. There are a lot of factors. But is it is my figure correct? That out of an average of 700, let's say around 719,000 for the past 5 years, the annual average is, let's say, 719,000 cases pending per year in the lower courts. The total cases decided is about 85,000. Can you confirm this? I'm talking about criminal cases. I'm talking about information pending in court. My data given to me by my staff is that on the average from 2010 to 2014, the average number of cases in the lower courts would be 719,329.
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
And on the average for the past 5 years, only 85,281 per year is resolved.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, if you divide 85,281 by 719,321, you get a 12%. In other words, only 12% of the cases pending, or average cases pending, criminal cases pending in a particular year gets resolved.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
I think so.
Yeah, as I said, you're not to blame for this, no, because you're only the prosecution. But in general, this is a very dismal data that only 12% of the cases per year are resolved. Kawawa naman yung nakakulong. Nahihimatay na nga si Acosta eh.
Your Honor,
Yes, Yusek. Please use the microphone.
figure of those cases already submitted for resolution.
Uh-huh.
We should take a look at those
Fine.
figures, Your Honor.
Okay. But I'm not criticizing anyone here. I'm just stating a fact that indeed only 12% are being resolved because only 12% are probably submitted for resolution. I mean, on a rough estimate. Di ba? The fact remains that only 12% are resolved, whether for whatever reason. Yeah, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor. These are cases pending in court.
So it's just that bring this out in order to show that something is wrong with our justice system. Now, which brings me to the point of an effort on the part of the Senate to help us decongest the jail. And this is the bill which I have authored, which will adjust the amounts in the revised penal code to present-day values. Because the values in our penal code today, which was passed in 1930, is no longer the value today. As an example, Madam Secretary, the theft of an article, of an article, ball pen, with a value of 200 pesos, Madam Chairman, maybe you should listen to this, magugulat ka. A 200 peso, an article stolen worth 200 pesos under our present system can bring you to jail for up to 6 years. 200 pisong ninakaw, pwede po hanggang 6 na taon makulong. Yes. And obviously, in today, the 200 pesos in 1930 is no longer the 200 pesos today. As I would repeat, today, if the value of the property you would steal is 200 pesos, you could end up 6 years in jail. Now, so we are going to sponsor a bill next week which will bring the 200 pesos present value to 40,000. We used a formula where today the minimum wage is 500 pesos per month, in 500 pesos per day. In 1930, the minimum wage was 2 pesos and 50 centavos. So using that, and in consultation with NELA and the Department of Finance, we came up with a formula that we multiply whatever is the amount by 200. So that if it's 200 pesos as the value then, it is now 40,000. So stealing an article worth 40,000 can bring you to jail for 6 years. If it's only 200, 30 days lang instead of up to 6 years. So today, after we pass this law, if you steal 200 pesos, you can only be jailed for 30 days, which is the more reasonable amount. Now, I am asking this because I've asked now the Department of Justice, would you have a data, how many people would get immediately released because of this, and therefore decongest our jail and make the penalty more reasonable and not make it as an unjust and cruel punishment if we continue doing what we're doing today. Would you have a figure? Would you be able to estimate?
We will be able to estimate that, Your Honor. We can collate,
You can
the
collate?
number of cases, the theft cases.
Or whatever number,
yes.
all crimes which the punishment of which is based on the value of the crime.
Yes, Your Honor. We will determine that. We will constitute a working group that can really gather the needed data
Well,
for that.
we crafted this bill in consultation with Assistant Secretary C and Prosecutor General Aureliano. They were part of a group that crafted this. But what they could not also answer me is the number, because this will have retroactive effect as it's favorable to the accused. So we would like to know, how many we can, if we can decongest our jails because of this, and I'm sure we will be able to do so, because the punishment would be more commensurate to the crime. Biro mo, 200 lang ang ninakaw mo, 6 na taon kang makukulong. Hindi naman siguro tama yan. So can you provide us with that data? We will give you a copy of the committee report, which we will sponsor on the floor, and on that basis, you can already make an estimate. That is all that I have, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for...
Thank you, Mr. Senate President. I just have some questions about the JUSIP program. Was it the Senate President? Did you create this, the JUSIP?
The JUSIP program is a creation of Congress. I was the first one who implemented it.
Okay. That was in 1988. Thank you. Since the JUSIP started in 1988, the funding has always been lodged. I think I mentioned this last year under the DOJ, but for 2016, no allocation has been allocated under the OSEC because it's been transferred to the budget of the Supreme Court. I just want it clarified. That means, of course, that the Supreme Court has the budget and they will implement the JUSIP program, the courthouses construction. The prosecutors, public attorneys, parole officers housed in the DOJ constructed courthouses, what happens to them? The JUSIP program will the Supreme Court also, is there such an arrangement with the Supreme Court now that the Supreme Court will construct these courthouses? Just wanted that clarification, please.
Chief State Counsel Paras can answer that, and also Prosecutor General.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, there is a Supreme Court Committee on Justice where we have been working with and we will propose that spaces be provided for our offices. It is just that they want to implement the project. But then they will, it is our understanding that they will respect the right and the office spaces which we will require.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure that there was such a working arrangement with the Supreme Court.
What happens now to what is the status of the court building in Cebu, which the present Hall of Justice has become condemned because of whatever happened to it? As far as I know, there is a need for a new Hall of Justice in Cebu. Ano ba nangyayari dyan?
Actually renting now, Your Honor.
I know they're renting,
Prosecutors.
but there is, were we not, that was the Hall of Justice we built during our time.
Yes.
The Siding Fernand Pen.
And then that would be part already of the plans, or the JUSIP plans, as would be crafted now by the Supreme Court.
Is there a would somebody be able to answer whether or not it is in the 2016 GAA? Meron ba? Wala.
Lump sum of 210.
Ang Supreme Court ba may lump sum din?
Yes, may I ask about the National Justice Information System? This was conceptualized in 2012. Remember, you told me about the National Connectivity Program or platform that will link the justice sector agencies for a holistic approach to crime prevention, etc. And funding since 2012 enabled the adoption of data exchange mechanisms. In 2016, 101 million has been earmarked for this, for two agencies under the DOJ, OSEC and the PPA. It's 101. May we know if this will be an annual allocation, because it is a program or a project, there's a timeline for this or a completion of its implementation and the status of its project implementation. And may we know if there have been any significant changes because of this NJIS program. Secretary?
Yes, Your Honor. The ASEC in charge is actually not here, but I can answer that question, Your Honor. The NG's program is by stages or by phases. And again, it's based again on the clustering of our services, legal, law enforcement, correctional, and legal. So there are various stages, and what we're done with phase one with respect to the Bucor IT program. Now, so since it's by phases, then there are specific programs for each year. So I'm not sure about the total number of years that would be needed to complete all the phases of the program. But for 2016, the indicated amount would cover several projects.
When it was conceived, was there a timeline for the completion of the project? Is it a 5-year program? What happens if the next administration does not believe in the NJS program? Sayang naman, we started it, we funded it, and what happens when it is not completely funded?
The estimated timeline, Your Honor, was actually 5 years from 2012. So that means that it can, 2017. So there would still be some phases or stages that would be completed beyond the administration, the current
Could you
administration.
kindly enlighten me on significant changes or improvements because of this connectivity platform?
Exact projects. As mentioned earlier, Your Honor, since we started with the correctional cluster, we have actually launched the IMIS, or the Inmate Management Information System for the Bucor. So next would be, yes, and right now, what is being developed is the connectivity, the interoperability or the connectivity of that system in Bucor with the other correctional agencies, relevant agencies like BJMP, PPA, and BPP, because we are developing a single Carpeta system. And the next would be BI, PNP, and NPS.
What happens if the next Justice Secretary or the next administration or the next Congress would not support the completion of this program? What happens to the first 4 years and the budget allocated in the hundreds of millions if it's not completed? Other agencies under the DOJ will not be part of that interconnectivity platform?
The installation of these systems, Your Honors, would be virtue of MOAs with the relevant agencies like DILG. So these MOAs have been executed, and therefore we expect these agencies, these other departments, to honor the MOAs, even if there is a change in leadership.
And if it's not, what happens to the actual operations of those already installed? There's no breakdown of the whole system. It's just that it will be limited in scope.
One of the consequences, Your Honor, but since this is IT, then we are actually institutionalizing those systems. So it would be difficult to imagine that even if there is indeed a change of, that there would be no
So you
support.
remind me, since I will be here.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. You're with the DOJ. You're the one in charge. Are you the IT person?
Director Monica Pagunsan,
Yeah, just
Your Honor.
remind, because this is among the many, many projects. Just because I may no longer be the chair, she's no longer the Justice Secretary. It may be a new administration. Sometimes administrations, they always look back at the previous administration. They always think what they did was not good enough and will be scrapped. So we may forget these things. Kindly remind that this is a 5-year program that must be continued, and we're talking, it's a non-political thing. It's IT. It's for connectivity. We proceed to the NBI, the National Bureau of Investigation. I'd like to know, when I first handled your budget 3 years ago, there were sad stories of the NBI in the regions that did not even have a vehicle, that were riding jeeps and walking and riding tricycles, etc. Have you actually completed basic transportation or requirements in your regions? Director
Good
Perez.
afternoon po, ma'am. For the past years that I have been attending here, the only vehicles that we were able to acquire, about 7.
How many more do you need? 16 regions, so 11 more.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you put it in the proposal of 2016?
We sent a letter of appeal addressed to you recently, and this is also one of the items that we sought to be considered by the Senate.
Equipping the NBI offices with vehicles, which is very basic, how much would that cost, Director?
100 million probably, ma'am, will be good enough, including budget for the repair of our regional offices and district offices.
Kot na, bago yung repair. O, basta this letter is here.
2 million. 2 million.
Okay, so here, your request is 16 million. Was this taken out by DBM? No. It's recommended. Okay. So you have no problem. It was accepted. It's in the NEP. It's here. Transportation expenses, purchase of motor vehicles, 16 million.
Kulang pa, ma'am.
Bakit po yun lang ang inyong linagay?
Para naman mapagbigyan yung maliit lang.
So how many more? So in short, kindly just let us know. Thank you. We just want to be able to say that we were able to give vehicles to all regional offices. So kung 16 million po ay
Walo lang po. Ang mga 14 vehicles.
just give it to us and we will put it.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
will add so that that's a very basic requirement because you have other requirements there, ICT equipment, etc. It was also approved. So we just want to, remember I tried to get funds from PAGCOR but it was not allowed by COA, that there would be a transfer of funds or a donation from PAGCOR. I forget it now. But anyway, could you kindly give us the exact amount for that and we will try our best and it's good as approved that you will have vehicles in all your regional offices. Yun po ang hinihiling nyo, regional offices, di ba ho?
Ma'am, pwedeng madagdagan. Yung hihingi namin.
Ano po?
Yung buildings namin, ma'am, has been constructed way back in 1972 and 1979. I think we have about 17 buildings owned by the NBI. But in my whole years in the service, I have not recalled that there was an appropriation for the repair, even for the electricals as well
In
as the
17
plumbing.
years, has never been any capital outlay for repairs?
Wala po. For the last 3 years, we were never having
You said
any...
17 years po.
No,
or
the 17 years, ma'am. 17 buildings. I was referring to 17 buildings. Yeah. Kaya we were also asking sana that we will be given an allocation, kahit man lang 2 million, ma'am, per building.
Done.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hindi natin sa consultant ng DOJ. 200 ang consultant. 2 million lang naman. Baka masunog sila. Electrical wiring. Oo. Di, ang consultant na 198 million na lang. But that's fine. Okay, that's very reasonable. Who's taking... Yes, yun lang po ang inyong hiningi ngayon. I recall last year, there was a request for retention of income. And I compared it to the PNP that also secures funds for permits, etc., which you do as well. Ang inyong income po ay sinusoli po nyo sa treasury. Opo. So, help us craft it that we would know for the same retention of income special provision. And hopefully it will not be vetoed this time. Let's see. Because I
still
think
hopeful,
if
ma'am. We're
other
still hopeful.
agencies have that, will that help improve your operations?
Yes, ma'am.
How much income did you receive in 2015?
600, almost 600 million, ma'am, out of the clearance fees.
So that special provision will be reiterated, and with the help of Secretary De Lima, perhaps we could convince the Office of the President not to veto that provision of the NBI.
If I may be allowed to say something about it,
Yes.
ma'am. Last year, it was already in the GAA, but the same thing happened. It was vetoed because, according to the DBM, we do not have the law or the basis for the granting of such grant. Now, the only advice that we got was to have our bill approved. And we worked on this, ma'am, our bill, our modernization bill. Yung bill naman namin, ma'am, is now on the final stage before the Senate. Naka-third reading na po kami sa Congress. And we're again asking for your help na sana po mapabilis dito sa Senate, ma'am.
Stay after this, please, and talk to the chair of the Justice Committee, Senator Pimentel, because
Yes,
I
ma'am.
recall I signed the committee report already. Yes,
Thank
and
you
if
po.
it will be passed before the completion of the budget in December, then there would be support for the special provision. It cannot be vetoed then. Thank you for mentioning that. Now I'd like to ask the NBI on the disaster victims identification that's lodged under you. I'm referring to the Yolanda victims. Why is it a DOH admin order, but the NBI, you're the lead agency in identifying cadavers during natural disasters? You still have an allocation for this, for the identification of Yolanda victims? Is that correct? You still have
Yes,
this
ma'am.
budget up to now?
Yes, ma'am, but we have submitted our requisition for the acquisition of several equipment, but we were having some problems along the way. Nagkaroon ng problema in the course of the bidding, but this time, the amount is already obligated. So we're just expecting to finish the procurement process so that we will be able to completely disburse the allocation of 61, I think 60 million that was given to us.
You mean cadavers have not been identified up to now? 2 years later?
Meron na pong kulang pa kasi, ma'am. We have one equipment that is lacking. We call this as the bone comparator.
Where are they?
Hindi po namin na-acquire, ma'am. Kaya the last time that we were
No,
asking,
where are the cadavers?
it's already buried, ma'am. But we have
they've
already
been buried. And then the identification, I don't understand.
We have already
You went through the process already
we
with
went
the DOH,
already
yes.
we already collected all the specimen that we need, but we cannot come out with the final identification because of
Equipment.
some equipment, ma'am.
And the specimen, it's been 2 years, pwede pa po yun? Hindi yan-
It's preserved naman, ma'am.
So how many families don't know and can't identify? Ilan pa pong pamilya ito?
I will just submit the report, ma'am, the detail about this DBI examination.
Okay. The Philippine government has no equipment to identify. We don't have equipment or nasira po?
Wala po kaming,
Wala?
kulang po kami
Anong
ng mga
tawag po
equipment.
sa equipment na ito?
Bone,
Isn't it very basic?
yes, ma'am.
Oh, identification of cadavers. That's the only equipment needed for that.
Ang unang problema namin was the reagents for the examination. Then, nung nagkaroon na kami ng reagents, ito naman ang bone comparator ata. I just forgot
Thank you. You have a new project called, which is funded for 127 million, the ICT Priority Project. May we be enlightened on what this is? Because you already have the NJIS. Is this 127 million different and separate from the computerization and interconnectivity of the DOJ, since you belong to the DOJ family?
This is part of the connectivity program of the DOJ, but this ICT project, ma'am, this is in relation also, principally, in relation with our clearance processing. If everybody has probably noticed that if you secure an NBI clearance now, it will not last more than 10 minutes before you can already secure your clearance.
So this funding is specifically for that clearance and not necessarily connectivity with
Part
the
of it.
NJIS program.
May part, ma'am, nakasama na po.
Why is the budget separated from the NJIS? While the other agencies would have been
Your Honor,
covered.
Director Pagunsan can explain
Yes,
that.
please. Hindi nakasama, but sila hiwalay ang budget?
Ma'am, I speak for the NGIS project only. And for the initial development of all systems, it is the budget is lodged with the Department of Justice, with the Office of the Secretary. But when it comes to roll out already to the respective agencies, the budget given to the agencies are those required. Those are the equipment needed by the agencies. So when it comes to cross-agency systems and equipment, we take care of that. Yes. We talk about the exchange portal, That's through the
So this is their
justice.
computerization.
Yes, ma'am.
for their
They have
processing.
to roll it out
Yes.
in their own,
In their own.
agencies.
Clear,
yes.
thank you. Thank you, Director. Now, just a small question to the OGCC. You're renting from the MWSS up to now.
That is correct, Madam Senator, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair.
In 2016, you've requested a DBM to pay for your rental arrears amounting to just 5.8, but it was disapproved.
That is-
Because, and the reason is because you have rental arrears. I don't understand. A 5.8 provision for rental was disapproved. Would you know why?
I actually do not understand why it was disapproved and has been repeatedly disapproved over the past years. When I came in 2010, Madam Chair, I noted that the office had arrears, rental arrears, and I made arrangements with the MWSS so that we can pay for it in staggered terms, and MWSS was gracious enough to give us some time to get the necessary budget. We already, in fact, submitted, Madam Chair, the billing statement and the amended lease agreement where that rental arrear is indicated. We have already submitted
It's
that.
a
to the
small
DG.
admin matter. I think your admin officer should settle this because you're given annual rental fees in the GAA, but still you've rental arrears. So it's not paid
The arrears were accumulated, Madam Chair,
all throughout the years.
in 2007 to 2009. We are currently.
Your current, these
Yes.
are previous,
Yes,
arrears.
Madam
Okay.
Chair.
just kindly settle that, yes. I note that one of your USECs, no, who was taking care of the AYACAT, was recently appointed to the ERC. Was that Undersecretary Salazar?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. Who's taking care of the interagency
I'm
against
the one,
trafficking
ma'am.
now? Yes.
JJ
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
What are we doing? The DOJ still, with the DSWD, still chairs the AYACAT jointly. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How are we? I saw in your slide earlier that there's been a marked rise in conviction of trafficking cases. Is that accurate?
That's correct, ma'am.
Yeah. What did you do that that caused that higher conviction rate for our trafficking cases?
More operations and more training for our prosecutors.
I recall that we also mentioned about greater visibility in terms of IECs in ports, airports, etc., seaports. Did you actually do that? We even gave some little budget for that. Did you implement that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We have various task forces in the airport and all the regions in the country.
And of course, the task force would include the BID, the Bureau
Yes,
of
ma'am.
Immigration.
Yes, ma'am.
When was your last meeting for the AYACAT? And how often do you actually meet?
2 weeks ago, ma'am. Actually, I just took over the YACAT only last August 25.
Before the end of the year, could you kindly give us a report when you have warmed your seat and before the end of the year, so we have a year-end report on the cases filed against traffickers, both local and foreign?
Yes, ma'am. We will do that.
And do you still coordinate with the very active NGOs? What was that? Yung child-
We have 3 partners NGO.
ano nga ba ito yung sa
IJM, ma'am.
IJM, International Justice Mission?
Yes, ma'am.
Are they still helping you?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
What are the 2 others?
Then there are 2 Visayan Foundation, Visayan Forum,
Okay.
Blas Ople
Are
Foundation.
these 3, yes, I know all of them. Are they still actively helping you?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And, okay, I'd just like to have a special briefing on that. As you know, that's one of my advocacies, trafficking of children, etc., women. And hindi natin ito napapabayaan. Sa dami-dami ng problema sa Pilipinas, hindi natin papabayaan ang aspetong ito.
Only about 2 weeks ago, the PNP had 2 successful operation here in Metro Manila, and I think there's another one in Zamboanga City.
Okay. Yes, I'm glad that you mentioned Zamboanga City because the usual areas where children and women are victimized are areas where there are natural disasters, or Zamboanga siege, Yolanda affected areas, etc. So bantayan yung mga ito.
Yes, ma'am. We're
Yes,
doing that.
please. Thank you. Thank you. For the Bureau of Corrections. Okay. In December of 2014, the DOJ Secretary signed the IRR of your modernization law, RA 10575. According to the DOJ Secretary, part of the Bucor modernization is to upgrade the salaries of the personnel. So may we know if this has been implemented? We noticed that the allocation for the salary adjustment of the Bucor employees has not been included in the NEP, even with the signing into law 2 years ago or a year ago. May we know how will you be able to upgrade or fund the salary increases without its provision in the NEP?
Your Honor, good afternoon. Ma'am, actually, we have not yet completed the requirements of DBM for the increase of salaries and other benefits that we can get from the modernization law. But
Wala
we are
pang
now-
IRR.
Ma'am, we have already submitted the IRR, and it was signed just last December 2014. And we initially submitted a stopping pattern to the DBM, but it was returned to us because it was reported as incomplete. So we are now completing the requirements of DBM, and hopefully we will submit it by the end of September this month, ma'am.
Oo, sayang naman kasi pinasa yung batas tapos it's just because of incomplete staff work. So what we're saying is that if you're able to complete the requirements, then bagahanapan namin ng pondo maski wala sa NEP so that we can abide by the law and your personnel can have increased salaries. Yes, you say, Cassis.
If I may, ma'am, no, the director of Bucor is right that they only need to comply with what is required by the DBM. Now, once they have complied with it and approved by the DBM, then the DBM will automatically provide the funding for it. There is no need to put it in the GAA. That's the understanding with the DBM because they have the multi, how do you call that? Miscellaneous purpose fund for
Correct.
what they only need is to comply with the
We
requirements.
will get it from the miscellaneous funds.
Yes, ma'am.
No, it has to be in the GAA. It cannot be not
But
in the GAA.
in the GAA, they have, I think that the DBM provided for data in once
Yes.
they are expecting for this, just like our prosecutors, ma'am. Once they have, there is an appointment, there is an automatic
Yes.
funding from the DBM.
Ang
Madam
pagkukunan
Chair.
yung miscellaneous and personal
Yes, ma'am.
benefits
I
fund.
think they have planned for that
Yes.
in anticipation of all these
It may not have been
possible
included in the
implement.
NEP, but I just have to correct you. It has to be in the GAA, hindi pwedeng wala sa
Yes.
GAA.
Yes,
So,
precisely.
kukunin lang natin yung pondo dun sa miscellaneous personal and benefits funds. Kaya pakitapos po nyo para din sa mga tao nyo. Oh, sayang. Napasa
Yes, ma'am,
yung
we
batas.
will comply, ma'am, Your Honor.
Yes. So, yan, kasi may batas, and then yung NBI modernization dapat mahabol bago magtapos ang budget para din yung inyong special provision for retention of income ay maitapos. Just a few more little items here. May I know what are the activities under this project called the Committee for the Special Protection of Children? Is this under the OSEC? Committee for the Special Protection of Children.
May I call on Madam Chair to Director Pagunsan to answer it because she is personally involved in the implementation of this program.
Shall I? For 2015, Your Honor, we have set the programs on the implementation of the protocol and the case management of case management for victims of abuse and exploitation. We only have, and we are currently leading also the government's efforts on the online child abuse with other agencies through a convergence of councils. Like the committee, of course, leads this with the Office of the Cybercrime, the IACACP, the Interagency Council Against Child Pornography, and we also have the Council for the Welfare of Children. This is in compliance also with our commitments to the Global Alliance on online child abuse. And we do have efforts right now, and we're working with the private sector also, particularly the service providers and the financial groups on filtering and the taking down of pornographic materials involving children.
This is connected to the cybercrime law. Is this an implementation of the cybercrime law? Part of
no,
it?
ma'am.
No?
No, ma'am. It is an international agreement.
Came ahead of the
Ahead.
cybercrime.
This
prevention
committee was already existing even before we enacted the Cybercrime Prevention Act.
Act. That's correct, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
And the committee is a permanent committee under the DOJ that takes care of all activities and conventions and laws pertaining to children.
Yes, ma'am. Particularly monitoring the implementation of RA 7610.
What are you, just kindly cite a specific activity for the protection of children. Anong ginagawa
Like, for
niyo?
example, we conduct capacity building activities for prosecutors, family court prosecutors especially, who handles cases, child-related cases. And we're working also with, since the DSWD is part of that, we are implementing a comprehensive program for child protection, and we're localizing it down to the barangays so that each will, and then we're also working with the parishes for child-friendly work.
It's 3 o'clock, so I have more questions, not to block your budget, but just to understand the work that you're doing, each and every agency, because I'm always interested and I want to learn more, but it's already 3, and I don't want to hold you as well because I know that there's much work to be done. And so I thank you for giving us all that information. I saw the big smile of Secretary De Lima. As always, there's nobody here with me except the Senate President to hear your budget. So that means you are non-controversial. So we deemed the budget approved, pending the submissions and the special provisions mentioned by the Senate President. And we request Director Mendez to stay and to lobby for the Modernization Act of the NBI so that the provisions can be done. Sponsored interpellation pa. Yes, the status is, yes, it was sponsored last September 16. So all we need to do is interpellations and then close and then pass on third reading. You have to lobby for it. No, we supported it. Matatapos yan. Kausapin ninyo yung sponsor. Ganun lang yun. So thank you very much to the DOJ family. Have a good day.
Thank you,
We'll
Your
see you in
Honor.
plenary.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.